Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1200A and today's date is February 9th, 2017 and the title of the episode is China, Russia, and Iran are dumping the dollar and increasing gold purchases. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now today we see the market is continually moving up and once again the market really is not a gauge on how the economy is doing. Remember, it is completely manipulated. The central bank controls the market. And we've known this for a very long time because this is the tool they use to convince the people of the United States and the world that the economy is doing well. But we've seen this before throughout history where the market does very, very well and the economy deteriorates in the background. And eventually what happens, like in 2008 and 2001, going all the way back to 1929, even further back than that. Yes, the market hits all-time highs. People are clapping, yelling, screaming. 1971 or so, it hit 1,000 points. But what happens right afterwards is everything falls apart, and people realize, well, wait a minute, the market just fell, and the economy is really not doing as well as they were saying. And this is at the point, this is where we are right now. We're watching this market continually move up. And as it moves up, people are saying that everything looks good. And what we're seeing in the background is everything is not doing as well. Now, we can see a lot of the numbers are still moving in certain directions where they were when Obama was president. Because, remember, Trump really hasn't done anything. Yes, we have corporations out there promising they're going to be bringing back manufacturing jobs. It sounds great. And at the same time, we have corporations, retail stores closing, laying off people. So, I mean, if there's 50,000 people that are just laid off and we bring back 75,000, I mean, where are we going with this? I mean, think about the 1.8 million people who've lost their manufacturing job. We need to bring back 1.8 million. And this is going to be very tough. And we see the initial jobless claims. Well, they have plunged even further to 44-year lows. Something that we haven't seen since 1973. But the continuing claims, they are still moving up. So right before the elections, continuing claims, they completely declined very, very quickly. And after the election, they are moving up right now. And what we're seeing is that the American people, this is according to Bloomberg's Consumer Comfort, this index has never been this high, and the last time it was this high was July of 2007. And you know what happened 1 year later? The entire economy fell apart. During this period in 2007, the economy was declining. People didn't realize it yet. People didn't understand it yet. People didn't know why things were happening. Why traffic to houses were drying up and people weren't really coming to purchase the house anymore. People didn't understand why all of it was happening at the same time, because when they looked at what the government was saying, when they looked at what the Fed was saying, they were saying that everything was absolutely fine. Everything was contained and there were no problems. Subprime securities, they were rated AAA, so it made no sense why things were starting to rapidly fall apart. But the market was hitting all-time highs, so people felt really great that everything was fine. And of course, as we approached 2008, and we were into 2008, we know the Fed, they forecasted no recession, and we saw that this was the time during the elections, and the economy started to really deteriorate very rapidly, and then when we hit October, everything completely fell apart. But leading up to that point in time, things were falling apart already. People were leaving their homes because they couldn't sell it. Interest rates started to creep up. People were losing jobs, but it wasn't widely reported. Sales at companies were starting to dip, and nobody really understood what was going on around this period of time. But we are seeing the same exact things, and we've been reporting on this, and we've been seeing that, yes, corporations, they don't have the revenue to support this market. I mean, Coca-Cola, they had a surprise drop in full year profit. And of course, they're saying, well, this is because of their refranchising in the U.S., their bottling operation. And really what's happening is that there's falling demand for their product. So they're trying to cut expenses by offloading all of this to different bottling companies. We see Kellogg's. Well, it looks like they're headed towards major job cuts, facility closures, because their sales forecast, well, it has been slashed. And it looks like they might be closing about 39 distribution centers. So when we look at the corporations throughout the United States, we see that their revenues, well, they're not where everyone believes they are. Sales are declining. They're laying off individuals. They're closing manufacturing plants, distribution centers. We're seeing this in retail. So what we're seeing right now is a huge contraction of the industry. And everyone's trying to explain it away. Well, we know that the people, they don't have jobs. Or if they do have a job, they're making less money. Even the people who had jobs and got another job, maybe a full-time job, the pay isn't the same. People have been writing in saying, I lost my job, but I did find another one, but I'm making about $25,000 less or even more. Which tells us that wages are declining. And we see this in the tax receipts. The federal tax receipts, the state tax receipts, they're all declining. And this is something that the U.S. economy really hasn't seen unless we're in a new recession. And when we look at the wages and the hours that employees work, we're seeing that corporations, well, they're starting to cut back on the hours that they're giving employees. And it's happening right now. In fact, Graham Summers has pointed out, we just witnessed the largest percentage decline in average weekly hours since the recession of 2008. So when you put all this together, declining tax receipts, the revenues that are coming into the corporations, the sales, that's all declining. Retailers, well, they're contracting, they're laying off, closing stores. UPS, guess what? Their revenue is declining. You put all this together, what we're seeing right now is that this economy, we've been in a recession because this has been going on for quite a while. This just didn't start yesterday. So we're already in this recession. Deutsche Bank is out there and they are saying, this is coming from an analyst inside of Deutsche Bank, it is time to get worried again because if China was indeed the catalyst for the global growth in 2016, well, in 2017, it's going to have the opposite effect. We're going to see this whole thing roll over. And this is what we're seeing right now. And they're saying, well, you better start worrying about what is happening here. Marine Le Pen, out in France, well, when asked if France will be leaving the Eurozone, would it mean the end of the EU single currency? And Le Pen said, maybe, and so what? The euro isn't a currency. It's a political weapon. The euro is a knife which the EU puts into the backs of the people to force them to go where they don't want to go. She also said that if the EU doesn't transfer power back to Paris, well, it looks like we're having a Frexit. France will be leaving the EU. And we're seeing a lot of countries where they're saying they're going to be leaving the EU. So we're starting to put the picture together here where the EU, well, it looks like their days are numbered, and it looks like a lot of these countries, they're going to be breaking away from that. That means the central bank of the EU is going to wither away. The central bank here in the United States, they have major problems because we are on the cusp of this entire system imploding. And the central bankers, they don't like to lose control. They like to keep control. And what we're seeing is that countries, they are preparing for what is coming, which is going to be a global economic collapse. And it's going to be very, very difficult. We reported a couple of reports ago that Bundesbank was repatriating their gold. And in January of 2016, the Bundesbank announced that 3 years after commencing the transfer of some of its offshore held gold from vaults located in France, in New York, they've repatriated about 366.3 tons, bringing the German central bank gold reserve held in Frankfurt to about 1,400 tons or so. And what they started to do was they started to speed up the process. And what we're seeing right now is that the Bundesbank, well, they have all of their gold already. The 300 tons from the New York Fed. Now, why did they speed this up? Why did they want all their gold under their care? Because that tells us that something is approaching. Now, we also see that Russia, China, and Iran, Russia and China, they're no longer purchasing Treasury bonds. They're dumping Treasury bonds. They're getting rid of their dollar reserves. And as they dump their Treasury bonds, they're purchasing gold. Iran right now, we know that they are dumping the dollar in March of this year. So what we're seeing right now is that countries, they are leaving and getting rid of anything that has to do with the United States, the dollar, the treasury bonds. And we see that Germany has repatriated all their gold. They have it all. And when we start putting the pieces together, we can see what's happening here. We see that the entire economic system is falling apart. The countries in Europe, they're going to be leaving the EU. We already see it with the UK. We see it with Italy. We see it with France. And this is spreading, which means the EU is doomed. We see that the other countries, they're preparing for what is coming. And from many people that have been out there talking about this economic collapse, they've been talking about how things are going to deteriorate very, very quickly within this year, 2017. And some look at cycles. Some look at predictive linguistics like Cliff High. Others have been following the market, saying that this cannot be sustained. But what's very interesting when you look at all of them, they all point to the same point in time, which is the latter part of this year, the third quarter, which I find very interesting because they're all using different methods to understand what is happening in the market with the economy. But all their methods are pointing to the same period of time in the same year. And just taking that, we can see that you need to be prepared for what is coming, because it's just very strange, or a very big coincidence, that all of this is pointing towards a collapse of the system in this year. And just to add to that, for those people who look at numbers, we know that the central banks like the IMF and those elite, they like to do things with the number 7. And we are in the year 2017. And we've seen this before. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a very big coincidence that this does happen when the number 7 is involved. But no matter what, all these individuals, everything that we've been looking at, everything that we've been reporting, points to the same thing. That countries are preparing, the elite are preparing, and those individuals who are out there, they're all pointing to the same period of time, using all different methods. And we should look at this and say, okay, something is happening here. Something is going to happen. Something's going to go wrong. The economy, we know, cannot be sustained the way it is. We know it's crashing. And we all need to get ready and prepared for what is about to happen here. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.